and welcome to Psychology 665, Research Design. This quote provides a nice introduction into the world of applying theory to research. A theory may be thought of as a series of two or more constructions or abstractions which have been hypothesized, assumed, or even factually demonstrated to bear a certain relationship, one with the other. A theoretical proposition, which defines the relationship between constructions, now termed variables, becomes a fact when that proposition is no longer contested by those individuals best informed on the nature of the theory and dedicated to study in the area of knowledge for which the theory has relevance. Theories vary in their levels of abstraction, objectivity-subjectivity, realism-idealism, perspective, and formality-informality. Theory is an organized way of thinking about a subject. Most theories define the concepts that are required for discussing the problem. Then they organize all those definitions so that they do not contradict one another. Theories then try to explain and predict behavior on the basis of their concepts. Good theories explain the why of things and can be tested as well as disproven. Theory helps us understand observations. Theory has application beyond a single event, situation, or instance. Theory is not about specific types of people, expectations, or behaviors. Here are several examples of situations that could use a good theory to understand the why behind the situation. In schools, students who are seen as good pupils do better, regardless of the teacher they are assigned to or the other students in the class. Managers are often told to expect the world of employees because that can make the employee perform better. In mental hospitals, patients sometimes exhibit mental problems that they did not have when they were first admitted. And a pervasive problem in psychological experiments is that the experimenter can lead participants to behave in ways that support the goal of the research. Do you see an underlying theory here? One theory that could explain all these situations is that of a self-fulfilling prophecy. This can be understood as a false definition of a situation, which evokes a new behavior and makes the original false conception become true. So, for example, this theory helps us understand why good pupils do better, because both the student and the teacher believe that they will, thus changing their behaviors and typically causing the student to fulfill that good pupil status. Of course, some theories will be more useful than others. When developing a theory, particularly for publication, it is important to keep the following 10 points in mind. Will people care about your question? Is the question being researched non-trivial in scope? That is, it may be the case that variable X has never been studied in the context of phenomenon Y. However, there might be no good reason, a priori or otherwise, to think that the variable X matters, or that it matters more than the other variables which have already been studied. Number 2, master the literature. Your theory should show mastery of previous research in the area. Admittedly, reviewers, editors, and authors will disagree sometimes over how broadly the author should review literature. However, when key articles are not cited, and when there are virtually no references within the past 5 years, reviewers and editors are more likely to doubt the credibility of your theory. And, of course, authors need to accurately portray and describe the findings of previous research in their areas as well. Number 3, covering a good number of variables. The manuscript should find a balance between being overly exhaustive and overly exclusive. In studying any phenomenon, authors have an almost infinite selection of variables which could be investigated. Including 50 variables means that the author is racing breathlessly through too many ideas too quickly. But focusing on only 1 to 2 may leave critical, potential alternative explanations out of the model. It is admittedly more art than science to know how many variables or theoretical streams need to be included, but making a theoretical contribution requires a thoughtful balance of these two extremes. Defining key constructs. One of the hardest tasks facing an author who is building theory is to clearly, precisely, and succinctly define key constructs. Leaving aside for the moment the need to empirically demonstrate convergent and divergent validity, authors would still do well to provide concise definitions and demonstrate how new constructs add value above and beyond existing constructs. Parsimony has always been a major criterion on which those theories are evaluated, and parsimony can be achieved in part by using as few new constructs as necessary to explain a phenomenon. Number 5. All variables in the relationships are clearly defined. Perhaps surprisingly, one of the most commonly given reasons for rejecting an article on theoretical grounds is that the nature of the relationships, or the propositions, are unclear. It is unfortunately quite common to read theories where the independent and dependent variables are not clearly specified, and the nature of the mediating and moderating relationships are not made explicit. One of the best defenses against a theoretically fuzzy article is to ask for help from an outside source. A colleague in an unrelated field can provide clarity regarding which terms, concepts, or ideas have not been made clear enough for the average reader. Number 6. Informed by theory. I often see reviewers comment that a paper is not, quote, informed by theory. This phrase can mean different things to different reviewers. For some, it means that an article does not fall squarely within one theoretical paradigm. For others, it means an article is focused on explaining a phenomenon rather than testing a specific theory's predictions. For still others, it means that a variety of theoretical perspectives have been used in explaining a phenomenon, but the themes that cut across theories have not been identified. There should be room in our field for both theory-driven and phenomenon-driven research. After all, papers that push the envelope in theory but are disconnected from the real world are no more valuable than papers that use a hodgepodge of theories to explain an important real-world phenomenon. For me, the most three basic elements in judging theory are: is there anything surprising here? Can some theory or theories be used to explain the predictions? And can the theoretical perspectives employed be integrated in some parsimonious and coherent fashion? Number 7. Focus of the article is well defined. Providing readers with a clear focus of the article and its boundary conditions is invaluable in strengthening a manuscript's theoretical contribution. What is the theoretical domain of the article? Are you trying to look at differences across people, across units, across organizations, or across cultures? Are you trying to present a new model, or are you modifying an existing one? Are you testing a theory, or examining a specific phenomenon? If your goal is to explain how a process works in a new context, have you adequately explained why you believe your new context is sufficiently different to warrant its own context-specific theory? What phenomena or samples lie outside of your field, and what phenomena or samples fall within your domain? The more clearly you can focus the article and delineate its boundaries, the more readily readers can understand where you are going and why you are going there. Number 8. Writing clearly. Needless to say, writing clearly is of enormous importance in building theory. Most reviewers can wade through a poorly written methods section or figure out the gist of the procedures even if they have questions. This is not so with theory articles. If the writing is unclear or confusing, it makes it virtually impossible that reviewers will put in the time and effort to try and make sense of new ideas. It is the author's responsibility to ensure that the writing quality enhances rather than detracts from the theoretical contribution of the work. Number 9. providing new insights. Another key element of theory building is going beyond simply rehashing previous research or adding together previously studied phenomena in one research project. Theory articles have to go beyond synthesizing previous research to provide new insights, new critiques, or new directions for theory testing. Moreover, if we know X and Y regularly occur together, showing that X and Y have the same effects when tested together is typically perceived as a relatively modest contribution. Somehow, authors have to show the value that they themselves are bringing to the table beyond organizing their predecessors' results. Number 10. Data. Finally, and probably the most difficult task of all, authors have to show that the theory they postulate somehow makes a difference. In some sense, then, a good theory has to travel well into the world of data. Will we get significantly different results if we study a phenomenon in a different environment than a specific author did? How much variance could we reasonably expect to account for? Are the author's ideas at least as plausible and meaningful to the existing literature on the topic? Will adding a new construct clarify and organize previous research, or simply muddy the waters even further? Do the author's ideas relate to the real world in any meaningful way, and can they be empirically tested? Now that we've gone over some of the main points to keep in mind about good theories, we can discuss some existing theories that have been accepted by our field. Attribution theory is concerned with the ways in which people explain or attribute the behaviors of others. The theory divides the way people attribute causes to events into two types. External or situational attributions assign causality to an outside factor, such as the weather. Internal or dispositional attributions assign causality to factors within the person, such as ability or personality. Cognitive dissonance was originally based on the concept of cognitive consistency, but is now more related to self-concept theory. When people do something that violates their view of themselves, this causes an uncomfortable state of dissonance, and that motivates a change in either the person's attitudes or their behaviors. The elaboration likelihood model maintains that information processing, often in the case of a persuasion attempt, can be divided into two separate processes based on the likelihood of cognitive elaborations. That is, whether people think critically about the contents of a message or respond to superficial aspects of the message or other immediate cues. Evolutionary psychology suggests that human behavioral tendencies are at least partly inherited and have been influenced by the process of natural selection. One popular area of study is the possibility that human sex differences are due to differential reproductive strategies. The schemata theory focuses on schemas, which are cognitive structures that organize knowledge and guide information processing. They take the form of generalized beliefs that can operate automatically and lead to biases in perception and memory. The self-perception theory emphasizes that we observe ourselves in the same manner that we observe others, and draw conclusions about our likes and dislikes. Extrinsic self-perceptions can lead to the over-justification effect. Self-verification theory focuses on people's desire to be known and understood by others. The key assumption is that once people develop firmly held beliefs about themselves, they come to prefer that others see themselves as they see themselves. Social comparison theory suggests that humans gain information about themselves and make inferences that are relevant to self-esteem by comparison to relevant others. Social exchange theory is an economic social theory that assumes human relationships are based on rational choice and cost-benefit analyses. If one partner's costs begin to outweigh his or her benefits, the other person may leave the relationship, especially if there are good alternatives available. Social identity theory examines how categorizing people, including oneself, into in-groups or out-groups affects perceptions, attitudes, and behaviors. Socio-emotional selectivity theory posits that as people age and their perceived time left in life decreases, they shift from focusing on information-seeking goals to focusing on emotional goals. Observational learning, or social learning, suggests that behavior can be acquired by observation and imitation of others, unlike traditional learning theories which require reinforcement or punishment for learning to occur. The triangular theory of love characterizes love as an interpersonal relationship on 3 different scales: intimacy, passion, and commitment. Different stages and types of love can be categorized by different combinations of these 3 elements. The drive theory posits that the presence of an audience causes arousal, which creates dominant or typical responses in the context of the situation. The stages of change theory was developed in 1982 to compare smokers in therapy and self-changers along a behavior change continuum. There are 4 stages. A 5th stage, preparation for action, was incorporated later into the theory. Social cognitive theory is a theory of social learning and imitation that rejects behaviorist notions in favor of drive reduction principles. Bandura added self-efficacy and advanced a view of human functioning that accords a central role to cognitive, vicarious, self-regulatory, and self-reflective processes in human adaptation and change. The social role theory is the principle that men and women behave differently in social situations and take different roles due to the expectations that society puts upon them, including gender stereotyping. The attraction selection attrition model asserts that the people make the place, and that organizational culture, climate, and practices are determined by the people in the organization. This theory is part of the socialization process, whereby new members in organizations, according to the framework, fit into a specific organization. Media richness theory is a framework that can be used to describe a communications medium by describing its ability to reproduce the information sent over it. For example, a phone call will not be able to reproduce the visual social cues such as gestures. Media richness theory states that the more ambiguous and uncertain a task is, the richer format of media will be most suitable. It is based on contingency theory and information processing theory. In conclusion, theory is invaluable to our research and our science. These tips that we went over today can help you as you create your own research proposal for this class. The existing theories that we discussed will hopefully spark some ideas for your own research and inspire you to create knowledge of your own to further our field.